3 then. And we'll set it up that way, because that's going to be our overlap there. That's fine. So what we need to do is we need to make sure that the inside is 4'3", 4'3", and then the inside will be 6. Hang on, put it back down. Which means we need to know where we need to cut our angle here. So you're going to need a pencil. Go grab a pencil.
I have a pencil on the table.
Yep.
Choose it.
Say hi, Phil.
Real
What
fast.
we're doing is we're getting ready to cut the angles on the loom. There's 4 45-degree angles that we need to cut in order to get our 45, 45, 90 triangle correct. That's good enough. We're going to make some sawdust anyway. Look at it, and we're going to hit inside and outside.
Still inside, I think.
So we need to be slightly outside that line on this particular project, because we can always sand it down. So, how does that look right there?
We're right on the line.
Right on the line, so let's give ourselves about 1/8 to 1/16 of an inch more. See that? Mm-hmm. Now, that's just about right here. Mm-hmm. The way to tell is let go of the board for a second and come look at the blade. See, if you look this way, the blade doesn't look square, then the blade looks thin, then the blade doesn't look square. Mm-hmm. You get it to where your blade is as thin as possible in your eyeball and compare that to your line. Does that look about right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, now, what pieces of equipment are we missing?
Safety goggles.
And
Earmuffs.
earmuffs. Why don't you go to the shed, see if you can at least find some earmuffs. I don't know if you've got safety goggles. And then pull the trigger and slowly bring it down. And look at how exactly. So that you're actually pushing it against the back and adjusting things properly. Does that look pretty good?
Yes.
Okay, if you're tight against the back, you let go. You better double check yourself.
Yes.
And you're just outside the line?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. You can go a little faster than that other one before, you just don't want to bind the saw.
Okay.
And if it would be easier, you can actually use something like this. 1, 2, 3, or whatever the case may be. I'm sure there's plenty of numbers on here that you could
What are
actually...
you doing there, Phil?
What we're doing is we are actually marking the sections that will be removed so that we can recess the two pieces into each other.
Why are we recessing the pieces?
So that they sit smooth so that you have a proper loom.
Can you go and get me an eraser or something? This one's done. Nibbler.
And then nibbling across this line a little bit here and there, we'll probably start from the top side here and start working this way. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. And do that. Worst case scenario, if nothing else, we start going with a hand chisel. We finish it out with a hand chisel. Okay? The other thing you could do is, if this doesn't work, we may have to use a router. We may have to go in and use a router and cut this across. So this See how that draws a line?
Mm-hmm.
Now notice we might be a little bit off. That's okay. A little bit here and there isn't going to hurt a whole lot, but we got to try and get it as close to this line as we can. This end's actually a lot closer. So, doesn't. Notice I'm not going deep on this end. That's only to reinforce that line a little bit. When you're using a vibro saw on hardwood, because hardwood is a lot denser than like pine, you have to go slower and it will actually start to, for lack of a better word, burn on the inside. So you need to make sure you don't start your workpiece on fire. Stop, take frequent breaks. It also helps you because, again, this is detail work, this is fine work. So you're doing all of this here, and sometimes it's easier to actually take this and draw your outline and then just take a good old-fashioned chisel and finish it out with a chisel. Alright, so you manage. Sometimes plan A doesn't work. We wanted to teach a little bit more about using hand tools. We've had to break out the router table to make this work. What we're going to do is we're going to take our ends and we're going to run an initial router across here to make sure that we can actually get this line where it needs to be at the proper depth. Then we're going to remove the fence off the router and remove the rest of the piece out of there. But we're going to do this so that we get our line right at first. We've already cut our angles, so everything should still cut fine down the line. We just have to hold the 45 against the So here's an example of how we're going to start things. We're just knocking it off roughly with the router after we've cut it. We're going to clean it up a little bit, probably with the oscillating saw a little bit, and most importantly, we're going to sand it down. We'll either use an oscillating saw or a Dremel to trim this back about another 1/16 of an inch here, and then this here we'll just take the sander and run across it to even this out. But we've gotten the bulk majority of the bulk off of it. So here we have a nice piece of red oak that is ready to go on this end. Now we got to work on the other end.